Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 362 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Bussels coming to you from Sandusky, Ohio, soon to be very frigid Sandusky, Ohio. I'm glad you're checking out this episode. In about 48 hours, we're going to be down to about a negative 25 to negative 30 degrees Celsius wind chill. So, very cold here. I'm glad you're checking this out. This is my second episode of my 2025 previews, and in just a moment, I'm going to be joined by Wazza King from Eagle Nation Podcast, and we're going to be previewing everything related to the West Coast Eagles for 2025. Well, probably everything. There's been a few things that have happened in the news here in the last couple of days that, let's just say we don't want to get caught with our pants down. Okay. Um, Ladies and gents, I do hope you'll head over to my website, ayankonthefooty.com, and get signed up on the mailing list so that when new episodes come out, you can have those in your inbox almost instantaneously. I do hope you'll share the episodes with your friends and family as well. That's a huge help to me and to the podcast. And if you like the show, I do hope you'll subscribe, as I said, and I do hope you'll also give us a share. Tell your friends about the podcast. And there's dozens and dozens of great interviews that I've done over the years with some fantastic guests, and I hope you'll check them out. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my chat with Wazza King from Eagle Nation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am back for my second preview for 2025, and I am absolutely thrilled to be joined again for, I believe, the third year in a row with one of the hosts from the Eagle Nation podcast, Wazza King, and it's a slightly different temperature in Perth than it is where I am tonight. Wazza, how are you doing, sir?
Not too bad, Craig. Yes, as we were talking off air, the temperature is totally different. Yours is very
Yeah.
cold, now it's very hot over in Perth, and I think it was the same last time when we spoke. So,
Well, I
um,
have a feeling, unless the AFL changes the start and end of their fixture, it's going to always be that way as long as we're previewing. Because I don't care what they say about global warming, it's going to still be about this temperature this time of year here in Ohio. Yeah. So,
yeah, and it's funny you say that because AFL over here is supposed to be a winter sport, and
mhm.
sometimes down in Australia, you wonder if we do have a winter. Well, especially in Perth, um, we probably have the less rain out of all the states in Australia, so it's like summer pretty much all the way through the year. It's a nice, consistent mid 20s
Yeah.
degrees Celsius for the year. And if it rains, it rains, but it doesn't rain for like weeks and weeks and on end. So yeah,
Now, do
I
they
guess that's
do
yep.
as far as supplying? This is certainly not a footy question, but as far as supplying fresh water to a large population like Perth and the surrounding area, does Australia do any sort of like desalination
Yeah, they
in
got
term?
desalination places all over the place. So
Okay.
depends on what you believe in. But yeah, that they're doing heaps of all that stuff. There's plenty of fresh water here. There's never a
Yeah.
shortage of water, even though they say there is, but there never is a shortage. But yeah, they got all that stuff. So
Okay. Okay. I just was curious about that because you see it quite often. I mean, California has, and this has nothing to do with the wildfires that have gone through there, but they're always discussing how they have, shortages of fresh water. And I'm thinking, you got one of the highest tax rates in the entire country, and you've got this significantly large body of water right off the coast. I think you could maybe, if you worked
oh yeah,
on
you
that a
could.
little bit, you could take care of that. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
we were talking before we started recording about how, I would get my, drink my coffee on the ship when I was in the Navy. The water had 2 hours earlier. It was in the Indian Ocean. So, I mean, it was, it always had a little bit of a jet fuel taste to it as well, because there was always a little bit of jet fuel that somehow ended up in those water tanks somehow, some way or another. But we're here to talk all things Eagles, and I guess that before we get too far along, the club finished with 5 wins last year. Um, do you think they have begun to officially turn the corner?
Well, as an Eagles fan, you have to hope so. So the last few years has been disastrous. Did it take too long to turn that corner? Yes, we've all said that. So, but now they're putting things into order. So hopefully, you know things start turning around for them.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be optimistic in that way. If when you look at the list and all that, but it's not too bad when you look at it on paper. But footy's not played on paper, as they say. So, the history shows you can turn it around pretty quickly. Collingwood showed that they bottomed out, and then they end up with a premiership. Eagles back in 2010 bottomed out. It was in a prelim in the next year, and then in the grand final 4 years later. So, you know, if we're positive, hopefully we can turn it around, but time will tell, I guess.
So what was the biggest, and I think I know the obvious answer to this question, the arrival of Harley Reid. But was there and maybe that wouldn't be your answer, but what was the biggest positive to come out of the 2024 season that was for the Eagles? What was the thing that you went, okay, that was good. That's a great step towards 2025.
That's a very good question to ask that. I think them find, well, to me personally, it was admitting that they took too long to make changes.
Hmm.
As a positive. And just seeing some of the younger kids actually getting given a go, but that should have been done a year earlier. It was done too late, and then some of those kids were playing for the careers, and quite a few of them did get chopped at the end of the year. So that's probably a negative for them. But at the same time, you got players like Reuben Ginbey was in his second year, had to do a bit of the bulk of the load. Elliot Yeo got free, basically uninjured. Jeremy McGovern um, turned back the clock.
Yeah, yeah.
Shows you that injuries play big parts in teams succeeding or not. And Jake Waterman, I've always rated Jake, and he's always played behind Josh Kennedy and Jack Darling, who's now at North Melbourne. Always that third or fourth tour, even behind Oscar Allen, and he had a breakout season and All Australian selection there. So that was the main positive for me, that some of these players actually stood up and showed that they've got it, and it probably puts in perspective a lot of people, and it's Eagles fans, there's probably other teams as well. They get these young draftees and they expect them to explode straight away.
Right, right.
And Harley Reid might, yeah, he's a one of a kind player, but some of these players take 2, 3, 4 years to actually hit their straps. You only got to go back to Luke Shuey. In the first 3 years, hard he played like 9 games, 10 games, and look what his career ended up like.
Yeah.
So that's a positive going forward. That you got some of these younger players that been on the list a couple of years ago. It's their time now, and you look at the list overall, they've got 28 players under 24 years of age. So that's pretty good.
So do you if I remember our conversation last year, and it might have even been the year before, but I think it was last year. I think you were kind of in the camp that thought that maybe it was time for Adam Simpson to move on prior to 2024. Now it happened during the year. Do you wish that would have happened at the start or before 2024 happened, to allow a new coach to come in and start fresh with, this young man who's going to be hopefully the face of the franchise for the next 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, well, I think I was on record saying that he should have gone.
Hmm.
You know, these things, I don't know. It's hard to say, that to me, if it was me, yeah, he should have gone. But they made the decision not to. They did backed him, and that was a big talking point here. Is he the right man for the job? And you look around, and at the same time, everyone was saying Dean Cox, and he was saying no, and now we know the reasons why. But I think when you've been in a system for 10, 11 years. I've always had the saying, if you've been a coach for 10 years and you haven't won a flag, you have to go on. So that's why I'm
Hmm.
surprised Ken Hinkley at Port Adelaide's still there. Um, but Simpson, he got to two grand finals, so he got the runs on the board. So that gives him that extra,
That's
I
that's
don't
fair.
know,
That's
backing,
fair.
I guess.
Yeah.
And who'd want to be on a board, I guess. You got to make that decision. But, when everyone else is saying it and everyone else sees it, and they take that long to react, and halfway through the year, and now he said it was mutual, right? Now I've been to a couple of talks with him, and he's been pretty honest. He said, look, he knew the writing was on the wall, so he asked, and they said no. So he basically was asking for him. He was pushing them forward to go with it because he could see that things weren't going to change. So, and they've got the new coach in there now, and from all reports, he's well, you'd want to hope that he brings in all new ideas and fresh air and all that, and the boys seem rejuvenated, so only time will tell.
Yeah. So when the when 2024 ended, were there any players that were dropped from the list or that moved on that left you kind of scratching your head thinking, "Ooh, I'm not sure that was the right move."
Look, in hindsight, I was always a big believer in Zane True. Um, I thought he had what it takes to be a good inside midfielder, but when
Hmm.
you got Yowie in there, and then Ruben Jimby comes up, you got Harley Reid, you got a number of players that can play that position. You know, I always thought he was probably the hard luck story, and injuries didn't help him. His mother died as well during the year. And it's sort of like just when you're getting to the point where you got to make a break, all these things happen, and just didn't go right for him. And he's probably the only one of the ones that got delisted that I thought was probably a bit unlucky. But when you look at how they drafted and what they were looking for, then you can see the reasons why.
Yeah.
Was there a couple of players that are still on the list that are lucky to be there? Yeah, for sure. And he could probably take one of their spots. But footy, the average career is 4 years, as they say, for a footballer. And, and it's pretty true when you look through lists, like 10, 10 people on average get delisted a year from clubs, 8 to 10. So,
Right, right.
and it's not as probably bad as drop off as in gridiron where they can get cut any time, but you got to make sure you're playing good football all along. And the only problem with the Eagles with those players is their development underneath. And I've said this last year, I think with the waffle,
Hmm.
the system underneath is not right, and it still isn't right. And until they change that, I can't see the development going a bit quicker. They need to be under the same thing as Freo with an aligned team, I think. But in saying that, there's all these rumours about AFL reserves teams coming in, but that's a costly exercise. So until that happens, the Eagles just going to have to put the head down, bum up, and get to work.
Okay. Now, just as a real quick side note before we go any further, I had somebody on a couple of weeks ago who was born and raised in Bunbury. And, I guess they'd kind of put their hand up saying, "Hey, we could be the 20th club to come into the comp. Um, we could host a club here. The area is growing, that sort of thing. Is that in your mind, is that something that's realistic, or would there be that, would the possibility of, would be better served, maybe with a club in Canberra or trying to get one into Darwin so you've finally got one in every state?"
Well, look, I don't think it'll happen in Canberra because just the head per head population just can't support it there.
Yeah.
Um, Bunbury, like it's either Darwin, which is the obvious thing, but they play their footy in a different season. They play now
Right,
because of
right,
the seasons, right?
right.
But I'd love to see a team up in the Northern Territory. Could they sustain it? There's enough football talent up that way, and to me, that would be the first option.
Hmm.
I don't think either team in WA would like a third team in WA, but if it was, Bunbury would be the ideal place because there's an airport. So, and you can go from Melbourne to Bunbury direct. So,
Okay.
um, the facilities, look, they're playing a couple of games down there this year. One's
Hmm.
Eagles versus North Melbourne, and they're doing a preseason one down there. It only can hold probably at max 8 to 10,000 people. So it's a little boutique thing. So for
Yeah.
that to happen, they'd have to put a lot of infrastructure into there. But look, it's a third like city if you want to talk about it
Right,
in
right.
Perth. So it could happen, but I'd prefer it to happen in Darwin first
Yeah.
if it was me personally. But yeah, it can
Yeah.
happen. It's feasible, but it'd probably be at a timeline of like another 5, 6 years before you'd even look at getting that off the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's going to be really interesting to see, just an odd number of teams here in a couple of years where, somebody's going to have a bye week every week. You're going to start the season and, you know,
Well, there
well,
was there was talk of Bunbury joining the Waffle.
Okay.
and West Coast aligning with them as their, waffle side. So
Okay.
there was talk of that happening. I don't know if that's gone any further, and then it keeps the competition even. So if there was any chance of Bunbury even being on talks for the AFL, I think that would happen first to see how
Yeah.
it go. Um, but then again, would Eagles want to jump into bed with that situation, knowing that down the line that they might get their own team? So it's going to be interesting.
Well, it's going to make when the Devils come into the comp in a couple of years, it's going to make the gather round rather interesting. When
Yes, yes, it will.
when
Um,
you got one club that's going to come, it's gonna come to the gather round, and they're just going to sit in the stands and watch the other 18 teams play because they're not.
no, well, the AFL will probably turn around and say, well, we're not putting any other teams in for 18 years. Everyone can have a buy. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
going to
I think.
be, it's been on the talk a lot down here. What happened to gather around? So,
Yeah. So, um, what kind of an impact are you expecting from the two young men coming over from Richmond, Liam Baker and Jack Graham? What are they going to bring to the club, and how are they going to help to project the club even further forward this year?
well, it's not just them, it's the coach as well. So, Andrew McWalter,
Right,
you
right.
know, he did half a year there as a head coach after Damien Hardwick stepped down.
Hmm.
I think it was 7-7 or whatever it was that he had, whatever, I can't remember. And then he went to Melbourne last year as a defensive coach. Look, I think they're going to add a bit just because of the coach as well, because
Right,
they
right.
already know his sort of style. Liam's more probably about leadership. I've spoken with him. He actually did an intro for our podcast, so he'll be our first intro for our podcast when we get off later in the year.
Okay.
But yeah, look, it's going to be exciting because Liam can play a few different positions. Will he play back? Will he play forward? Will he play in the midfield?
Hmm.
I just think he brings out leadership and, he's small, he's nippy, he's fast. Jack Graham, look, I've always liked him, you got to be all right when you're playing your fifth game of footballs in a premiership, you know what I mean? To be backed in by a coach there. And he missed one through injury, so he's a dual premiership player as well. And he's still young, man. So
Yeah, they're both only
um
20. They're both only 26. Yeah.
so, they're hitting their peak of their careers. So, um, I think it's something that the Eagles need. And then when you look at, people sit there and they talk about the draft that they gave up pick three, but they got basically Jack Graham for free.
Hmm.
They got Matt Owies chucked in, and he would have been for free anyway. Plus, they, went back and got Bo Allen. So you look at that first thing, and you got four players for one pick. If you want to spin it that way, you know what I
Right,
mean.
right. Yeah.
So I think it's added a little bit of depth to answer the question. They're going to add depth. So because there's that, I think last year I mentioned that we didn't have many players between 24 and 30,
Hmm.
and on the list now between 25 and 29. Now we've got 12.
Yeah.
So we've only got four that are older than 29. So that's shown how the list has changed a lot. And I think it was 27, 28, under 24. So a boggy list is under 24. So we're the second youngest team by point 0.2, I think, for the season. So they've
That's
gone a
that's not
complete
bad.
turnaround.
That's not
And,
bad.
the only way premierships are built on drafts, as they say, and
Hmm.
youth coming through, and you get 50 games into some of these guys, and who knows what can happen.
Yeah, and you got, you don't have, as you said, you've got there's only one player on the list that as far as I'm reading, Jamie Cripps is the only person to play over 200 games or even 250.
Yep.
Who's definitely towards the tail end of his career by I think all
Yeah, so we've got two
calculations.
players from 200 over 200, and then you got 10 players. We got, what
Oh,
is
I
it,
missed Elliot
10,
Yo. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
18?
Yeah.
So there's 26 players on the list that have played 50 games or less.
Hmm.
So that's half your squad. So, and 16 of them have played 20 or less. So, and eight have played none. So, and they're all the new recruits. So,
Right, right. So should we? I guess we need to get out of the way the kind of the blemishes on the recent off season. You know, should there be any concern about Mr. Ginby's issue that he had arise recently? And I did see that I guess that the club itself was probably caught with their pants down, hearing about this. Um,
Oh, look, yeah, this shows you just how small a community can be in a big state.
I'm glad you finished that sentence.
Um, um, you know, if he wasn't a footballer, you'd never known about it. If he was
Yeah,
a WAFA
yeah,
player, you wouldn't know about it.
right, right.
It's funny how media they hear something, and in the world of public social media, and everyone's got a phone. Somebody's either going to take a snap of it or report it, and
Yep,
but end of the day, it was news for 2 days, and everyone's forgotten about it. But the biggest story probably now, I thought you were
with
going to say, was
Liam
Liam
Ryan.
Ryan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Um, Now, when you look at that now, the police have cleared that there was nothing to. I don't think they're getting charged.
yeah.
So from the looks from within, it looked like they knew each other,
Hmm.
or the communities knew each other. So, but Liam Ryan, should you be doing that? No, you shouldn't be doing it, because you got to think ahead. You walk away from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because people are going to have cameras, and that's what's happened. Um, you just got to walk away from it. You got to, he was interviewed that day about the Indigenous All Stars. So,
hmm,
hopefully he might get a hit on the knuckles, and he might get a suspension by the club. I can't, the club might say, AFL might say, look, you need to give him a suspension, but hopefully it doesn't rule him out of the Indigenous All Stars game in a couple of weeks.
yeah,
But if it does, he'll learn his lesson. And
yeah.
it's not the first time he's been involved in a scrap that's been caught on video as well, but probably the same circumstances. Who knows the full story until it comes out? So, um, with the police saying there's no case to answer here, I think
Right,
we
right.
move on. But again, footballers, the reports are going around that it was a Fremantle fan videoing it. Doesn't matter who they go for. Somebody's videoed it. Somebody's seen it. Now
Yeah,
everyone's seen it. You just don't do it.
exactly, exactly. It's just it's best to be
Well, it's
to
just
walk
not
away.
football. It's all
To
elite
walk away is a good
sports.
idea.
If you're an elite sportsman, you're out there. You've got to, you know, you got to make decisions,
Yeah, we
because
had
consequences. It might be harmless, but at the end of the day, somebody's gonna. You can't please everyone, so just walk away from it, or do it behind closed doors
well,
that no one's gonna see.
there's a great example of this just this past week in the NFL in the playoff game in Philadelphia with the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles. There was a gentleman and his fiance who were Green Bay Packers fans at the game. Now, Philadelphia is known as the city of brotherly love, and you talk about flat out the biggest lie in the United States. Philadelphia, Philadelphia is the football team with the football fans that the fans threw snowballs at Santa Claus at a game. Okay, these people in Philadelphia are some of the most psycho individuals there. But this
Bit like
guy,
Fremantle.
and
No, no.
I don't know. I'm gonna take your word on that because I do still hope to do a Fremantle preview. But this guy was um they're just there enjoying the game. They're wearing their Packers gear,
Yep.
and the this guy was talking about referring to this gentleman's fiance using that four-letter C word that tends to get tossed around in Australia quite a bit, but my wife has told me I'm never allowed to say it. Uh, but and I don't think I have too terribly often in my 61 years, to be completely honest. But he just was belittling her and just saying horrific things. And it got posted. It was up. I saw it on X, and it got reposted a number of times. And it basically, people were saying, find out who this guy is. And within like 24 hours, several
They
people
found
had
him.
found out who he is. Had that his employer and he was like an executive vice president for one of the major hotel chains here in the United States. He lost his job
Oh,
because of this video.
well, you
So
can understand it, can't you? You can
yeah, it's
understand
just
why.
yeah, and especially when you think about what we just talked about off air
Yeah.
about, as well. Just yes, you gotta pr- you gotta think that the cameras are on at all time, and
That's it.
because the chances are.
It's cameras and it's microphones as well. How
Yeah,
many
yeah,
reporters have been caught out, and that's just the way the world is at the moment. So you've just got to not put a foot wrong, as they say, and if you don't do
hmm
anything wrong, there's nothing to worry about. But just make sure if you're going
yeah,
to do something that you think is going to be controversial, there's no
yep,
cameras, there's no microphones, and that's the way the world is.
yep. So it's who are you looking for in taking the next big step for the club this year? I mean, I don't, I again, maybe the easy answer is Harley Reid, but maybe it's not. Who's the one you see that if this person takes, the leap that you believe they should be taking, that you're going to be able to say, we're heading in the right direction. This is great that this is happening with this young man.
Oh, look, to me, it's Elijah Hewitt. He missed all last year because of excuse me, a misdiagnosis on a foot injury. Um, if he can get on the park and live to his potential, I think people are going to be sitting there. I know a lot's been talked about Harley Reid,
Hmm.
excuse me, Harley Reid, and Reuben Jimby, but this guy to me, per pound per player, he's one of the most exciting young players. I watched him a bit at development level,
Yeah.
and this he's got it all, man. So he's the one I'm looking forward to. If I had to pick somebody to come out, it's because I think he's gonna, people saw what he in his debut year, he played 14 games. So,
Hmm.
but unfortunately,
So
they misdiagnosed a foot injury.
so
So,
what did they think was wrong with his foot? I mean, they didn't get a second opinion on things? I mean, yes,
no,
this is
they did, and then they went and got a third opinion, and he went over to Melbourne and saw a specialist, and then they still got the diagnosis wrong. Don't ask me what it was because I can't even pronounce a word, but it's like two little balls in your bottom of your feet, and that
that
was one of the.
syndesmosis thing.
Well, no, it's under the bottom of your foot, under the ball of the part of your foot, and
Okay.
that was only part of the problem. So they addressed that, but they didn't address further back on the ankle. So he's training the house down. So touch
Hmm.
wood, he goes, he's pretty good. So he played the whole year beforehand with the same injury. So it's not like he
Okay.
couldn't play, but they just decided to. And once they'd made it was a bit of piss off. So. But what can you do? And he was ready to come back, and then he re-injured it.
Oh no.
So
Yeah.
hopefully, touch wood that he is. And then there's a couple of players that need to really stand up, like Jack Petrocelli really needs to um, show what faith the club's put in him,
Yeah.
because he's probably going to be, every club's got a whipping boy, and I love the way Jack plays because when he's running at that ball towards goals, he's good, but when he's running the other way, I think he gets a bit lost. So maybe they might start him as a halfback, but he's another one that needs to. He's probably one of the guys that needs to stand up to protect his job. And then I'm really interested in seeing Clay Hall, who we drafted at the end of last year, and he played one or two games last year. He's another big body, and with some of these new guys that come in, like Bo Allen and all that, I think look, the next few years for Eagles fans is going to be a lot of youngsters getting played, and it's a new look team, and there might be some big whippings still, but as long as they're competitive and that's all we can ask for. But
Yeah.
it's exciting time. I think it's an exciting time for Eagles fans. It has to be.
Well, I think it most definitely is also. I think you have to be cautiously optimistic about where the club is right now. And I don't know if you're you're looking forward to what's going to be the case in 2026. I mean, you're not. Is
The
there
big thing
any?
is
What's that?
the big thing is do they keep Harley Reid? Can they keep Harley Reid? The
Yeah.
only way you keep a player like that is if you're winning or you're being competitive.
Hmm.
Um, Depends on who you talk to. If you talk to people that don't really follow the club, they reckon he's gone. People that players, you can never gauge what players tell the truth because Tom Brass told me like 4 weeks before at a public function that he wasn't going anywhere and then he's gone. So, you know, I think if they can mold the team around him and keep him and I think it's going to hold the team in good stead. But if they don't, they get Kings Ramsden as well. So if they can snare somebody like a Chad Warner at the end of the year, I think that
Yeah.
helps them as well. So I think they're
Well,
going all in for that. So
I guess
that's an exciting bit for 26.
this leads me to, another, question, because if I'm not mistaken, did they not increase like the contract length for like the early round picks to three
Yep.
years instead of two?
So
That
first round went to 3 years instead of two.
Yeah.
So and if you're Harley Reid, you don't have, some players have re-signed, like Sam Darcy. He was drafted the same time. He just
Right, right.
resigned, but he didn't have to resign. Like everyone's surprised that he resigned
Hmm.
this early because you got another year to go. If they players like in that first round or that, now you'd be foolish to, unless you're getting a bucket load chucked at you. I'd be
Hmm.
waiting to the third year to sign because you know you're going to get another contract at another club if you want to go.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
players that are that are on the fringe, I can understand them signing earlier contracts so they get the extra year, you know what I mean?
But
To
my
stay at
my
an AFL club, you know?
the thing I was wondering is that do you think that length should be even longer? Because you've got a player like.
Well, clubs asked for 4 years,
Hmm.
but the Players Association went with three. So, if you're a club, you definitely want 4 years because, like I said, the average lifespan for a footballer is 4 years. So you want to give them at least 4 years. And like,
Right, right.
guys like Zane True and all that, they had 4 years, but two of the years was on a rookie list. Yeah, you're not really concreted in, you're getting injuries. And you know, you have a look at Elijah Hewitt, as I just mentioned, he missed a whole year of football. So, and he's into his second year of footy, so he's signed an extension. But if you hadn't signed an extension, you're sitting in your second year. Oh, can I get cut here? I'm injured. Are they
Right,
going to have
right.
faith in me? You know what I mean? So yeah, so as a
And
club, I'd love to see it before, and I reckon
and
players
you would
would be open to it. I think
you
it should
you would
be. I think the round one should be 4 years, and everyone else should be 3 years.
yeah, because you
But
would
at the
think that
moment,
the
it's 3 years and two.
you would think that the even the players you would think would want for that first contract to be, guess I know that they're thinking, well, if the player's good enough, they can maximize their dollar worth
Yep.
in the third one. But then you have somebody like a Hewitt, who's worried about, am I going to lose my spot on the list after this third year because I was out for an entire year? But then you got a club like the Eagles um with Harley Reid, who are investing the time and the resources to develop this kid. And then, if he does, and again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm not saying I want to see it happen. I'm saying, if he decides, I want to go back to the East, yes, you're going to get picks, but then you got to turn around and get, rebuild, those picks, get those kids developed while the people that you have established that are there are moving a year longer into
Yep.
their careers, which starts to close the premiership window opportunities for them. It's like a perpetual, it's is this part of what's going on with, say, the ruse, for example, with Jason Horton-Francis, and if the if this were to happen with Reed, I mean it may actually set you guys back another year or two because you've lost this guy who was supposed to be a cog to your club.
It could, but it could also set you forward as well. So I guess I heard
Yeah,
a
that's
discussion.
true. That's true.
I had a discussion the other day on radio, and I think it was Kane Corns. He said, a lot of clubs worry about a big star leaving their club, but when you look back in history, has it affected the club that much? And he said the only one he could think about was Jeremy Cameron going to Geelong. It sort of affected the Giants. But when you look at Lance Franklin, who left Hawthorn, and
Hmm.
everyone's gone, oh, what's going to happen with Hawthorn? They won a couple more premierships without him.
Right, right.
Um, Gary Ablett, when he left Geelong, oh, what's going to happen? He's gone to Suns. They went and won some premierships without him. So sometimes I think the emphasis is put on the negative too much sometimes. I think you can go back to the Eagles back in 2008, at the start of 2000, end of 2007, start of 2008, when Chris Judd wanted to go back home.
Hmm.
And, they got the pick in the end, that you don't know who wins that trade until years later. And when you look at it, Eagles ended up with Josh Kennedy, who ended up multiple All-Australian, premiership player,
Hmm.
leading goal kickers. They got a 200 gamer out of Chris Marston. They had another guy that was on the list that didn't really do anything, but played 300 games at waffle level. So, you got to look at the pros and cons and everything. And, if Harley Reid wants to go, so be it. Great player, don't get me wrong, but teams are bigger than one player.
That's definitely true. Yeah, it is. That's true. This is
And marketing, like to me, I put him alongside Nick Naitanui as a marketing toy. It's going to bring in money for the club who's they've got him, and Eagles have got him at the moment, so they've got to make it last. And if the Eagles are good enough, he'll stay. If the culture's right, he'll stay. It's just media noise at the moment. He's getting offered 2 million a year. Well, if a club's going to offer that kid 2 million a year, the club that he's gone to, if I was a player, I'd be asking why. Because that's a big chunk. That's a big chunk out of
of your
14. You
cap.
got
Yeah.
44
Yeah.
players on a list, and the salary cap's 12 and a half or 13 million, and one player's getting 2 million. I'd be asking him why. And I'd say, why can't I have this? So, good luck to,
That's a
the
great
clubs
point.
that want
Yeah.
to chuck that money away. So, I'm not saying he's going to be one of the highest players ever. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
you know, if I'm a CEO, I'm saying, well, this is what we think you're worth. If you want to stay here and you want to win premiership, cool. And there's plenty of times in history where players have left hunting for a flag at another club, and their previous club goes on and wins a flag, and they don't. So
Yeah, it's
I guess it's uh
that's definitely true.
I guess it's a story that'll unfold in its own time. I guess we'll see what happens.
It's kind of like the Cleveland Browns moving in 1996 to Baltimore to become the Ravens, and they win the Super Bowl just 2 years after they leave Cleveland, and Cleveland's never been to the Super Bowl. So yeah,
I
they
know we're gonna go. We won't go there.
well, they did win the before the Super Bowl was the championship game. It was just called the NFL Championship.
Yeah.
They won the NFL championship in 1964, so I was about 15 months old at the time when they won their last championship in 1964. So, um, the last one they won, I was in diapers, and I'm afraid I may very well be back in diapers before they win another one.
Well, I guess St Kilda fans could probably feel that pain as
Oh
well, you know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Even yeah, that's the way it goes, doesn't it? You know what I mean? You sit back in hindsight's a wonderful thing. Did we make the right decisions here and
Yep.
stuff like that? So all comes down to that
Kind of the
yeah, you
love
just gotta
the
hope
love
things turn around.
the yeah they for those of you who are not NFL fans, they gave the largest guaranteed contract to a player who they signed for 5 years. He's never going to play another game for them again. He tore his Achilles tendon last year. He retore it during rehabilitation just a few weeks ago. So he probably will not play in 2025. And they still owe him, over the next 2 years, they owe him close to $90 million. And they've already paid him about 140, and he played 19 games for them. And what's the term I would like to use? He sucked. He was terrible.
Oh my,
The
and
largest
that's guaranteed. That's
that was
guaranteed money, isn't it?
guaranteed money. Yes, yes.
Yep.
But see, that's still it's still one of the things that we talked off air about how I was a bigger baseball fan than anything, and I've walked away from baseball because there is mainly because there is no salary cap. So you have a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers or the New York Yankees who are paying their team collectively, and the New York Mets, I should put them in there as well, that their team salary is around $350 million collectively for their team for the year. And you've got other teams whose team salary is about $90 million. So there's this huge disparity between the teams. That's the one thing I like about the NFL. It's the one thing I love about the AFL is that the AFL, the salary cap, the pool of money that they have to spend on their players and even in their coaches as well is uniform for the most part across the league. In the NFL, the team in Green Bay, which Green Bay is a city that has about 100,000 people, that team has the same opportunity to build their team to win the Super Bowl, just like the team in Los Angeles, a city that has 10 million people.
Yep.
So it's baseball. Those clubs get a lot of their money from their TV revenue. The bigger cities have bigger TV market deals with their the places that carry their games, so they get paid a lot more money for that. We just had a guy that signed with, I believe he signed with the Mets. I think by the name of Juan Soto.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah,
getting a lot of.
he signed a contract for, I believe, 12 years and $750 million.
Yeah.
Three quarters of $1 billion.
It's amazing
And
money, isn't it?
he's only 26 years old right now. So by the time this contract is over, I think he's going to be 38, 39 years old. Um, is he still going to be playing at that high level at that point in time? I don't know, but it's
It's amazing how much eh, we sit here in Australia and think that the AFL players are on too much sometimes,
uh-huh.
and then you look at that and yeah, I heard that the other day on the radio, and I was like just staggered that you can make that much money playing sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And like you said, that's the thing. It's you got long-term contracts. Some clubs are doing it now, but how much is that contract worth? Really, is it worth that much? And are contracts even necessary these days? Because I know in the AFL, what we had trade period here, and 20 of the guys that left their clubs were trade
hmm
in contracts. So does it give the club a bit more ammunition, or does it work better for the clubs? Probably sometimes it does.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just crazy money, but and crazy limits. To me, it's probably just all paper, but at the end of the day, I guess as an individual, you want to be comfortable. So somebody's going to have to take on that salary, aren't they? If he does get traded,
Yeah.
unless there's clauses. So and that's just the way it is, So it's
Uh,
crazy, but
yeah, and
uh,
I don't begrudge players. I don't begrudge anybody from earning every penny they can possibly get their hand on. I'm a big fan of capitalism. Make as much money as you possibly can. I get every nickel, every dollar you can get. I have no problem with that. But I think in situations like this that there needs to be some sort of uniformity. And the AFL has it right. I think the NFL has it right. The NBA has it right. Um, I don't know how it works for hockey here or other professional leagues in Australia. If they have salary caps as well, but I would imagine they've got something in place like that.
yep.
Yeah, yeah. I guess do the teams in the NBL are those teams structured a little bit like the AFL clubs where they're owned by their members, or are those like privately owned clubs?
They're privately owned clubs.
Okay.
So yeah, so like the Wildcats used to be owned by one guy for about 20 years, and he sold it on to SEN Network. which is Craig Hutchison
Yeah,
and
yeah.
his team, and now they've sold it on to another guy privately. So yeah, they're all structured different, but they still got to go by the rules. Everyone's got to have the same. I think I'm not a big on the basketball as much
Mm-hmm.
as their structure, but I think they've got the salary caps. They only can have certain amount of imports on a team. So yeah, like I said, you got to have salary caps in there, and that's why I like everyone's on the same salary cap. So
Yeah.
um, if you can keep it like that way, it works for some clubs. Some clubs, you know, Carlton have done it before, and it's killed them when they've stuffed around in the books or hurt them for 10 years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to make sure your books are in control and in the right spots. So getting back to it, Harley Reid, if you want to pay him $2 million, some club go for it because no player to me in the AFL, even though it's big bucks in the AFL, it's little everywhere else, but
Right, right.
I just don't understand it. And when I think I've done a bit on Gridiron. I see some of the quarterbacks get paid more than everyone else, but I guess that's the way it is. Um, the roles are different there. They're teams within teams, so that's
Mm-hmm.
different again. So, but if I was in a team and I'm playing soccer, or if I'm playing football and I'm only getting 200,000 or 300,000, and I know I'm playing every week and I'm playing really good, and somehow guys getting 2 million, I wouldn't be happy with that. So,
I I
I
I
guess
could
that's
certainly, yeah.
I guess that's why players leave clubs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's not as much movement in the AFL as there is in a lot of other leagues as well. There's not as much player movement from team to team. And it's one of the things I like
Well,
about
when
the trade period, but it's such a unique thing.
when you think about it, there's actually more movement now at the end of the year in trades than it has been for the last 2 decades.
Okay.
So, and I think they're like, unlike rugby here, like rugby, you can be playing for a team, say you're playing for West Coast, but say I'm playing for Fremantle next year,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that happens quite a lot in rugby over here, rugby league and rugby union. So, um, when that hasn't hit the AFL yet, I don't know if that happens in other. I think it happens in Gridiron as well. They know they're going to another club as well, and the players like it. But if that happened in AFL right now, clubs would probably stand their player down and go, "Well, if you're going to go play for them, I'm playing you in the waffle." You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
So
yeah.
that's why I don't think they've come around to that sort of yet for player movement, but that will come. I think that's the evolution of sports, and that every other club sports is doing it. So with the AFL, it hasn't happened yet, but I can see it happening soon.
So looking back at the Eagles, what are the things, and I've asked you this question before, but last year, but what are the things that you're looking forward to be able to say, kind of tick the boxes and go, okay, this is showing me that it's going to be a successful year, or you got other boxes where you're tipping and going, uh-oh, this is not what I want to see happening.
Well, this is what I don't want to see happen. I don't want to see losses. We had 10 losses by 50 points or more last year,
Hmm.
right? And it was probably more the year before. So that's one thing I don't want to see. I want to be more competitive. So I'm not expecting us to, everyone predicts how many games you can win, and I predicted five, and we got five last year. I said 5 to 8. Be happy with it. I'm going to be happy with 8 wins this year.
Yeah.
I think they can win 8 at least. Being, looking forward, I think they can do that. So I want to be more competitive. I want their points scored from turnovers to go from rank 18th in the competition to in the top 8. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I want them to attack more, and I think that's what they're going to be doing more instead of being so defensive. Um, Points conceded from clearances are the worst in the league, but like clearances is another stat that they won the clearances, but they lost the game. Clearances are pretty, it depends on how you view your clearances. Because you can get it out straight away, but it might go the next kick straight back. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So I want them to be more proactive on their clearances. So I want them to lift that to be more scores from clearances, because scores from clearances is what really counts from a clearance. Um, and when they are in defence, I want them to close the gap down of the other teams scoring because some teams are going in every second time and they were scoring against Eagles in some games. And that's why I think a lot of players were calling for Simo's head because the defensive structure, even though it used to be good, just wasn't there. They were getting scored on too easy. So I want to see that tighten up. And I just want to see him play football with flair, believe in themselves. And that's what happens when you get new coaches come in. I think they sit there and go, well, look, be yourself, but play for the team. You know what I mean? So as long
Yeah.
as they can be competitive and play a bit of flair, I'll be happy.
I mean, yeah, because they were 18th in disposals last year in the league, and
Yep.
they were 17th in
It's
hit
going
outs, which, again, the hit out, that's how great you have you won the hit out, but if the ball's not going where you need it to go, it's a bit of a misleading stat there, and still
Yeah,
really
see
low
that
on
that's another
clearances.
that's another thing. Your hit outs. Do you win the hit outs? But are the hit outs to advantage?
Right, right.
So that's when Nick used to play. You knew you were going to win the hit outs to advantage. So and it worked for you. But you can go in there, you can put any ruckman in. That's probably where the Eagles probably lacked last year's not having a recognised ruckman. They still don't really have a recognised ruckman of note.
Hmm.
Bailey Williams did a bulk of it. Flynn got injured and he unfortunately got injured again last week at training with an ankle. So hopefully he's all right for round one. But is sometimes a ruckman's probably the most over exaggerated position in the ground to me. It's what you do around the ground as a ruckman that counts. And that's why great ruckmans like Max Scorn and Dean Cox in the past were so damaging because it's what they did around the ground when they weren't a ruckman. And Bailey Williams last year, he was the one that we wanted to rise up, and he did pretty good. He's not a
Hmm.
ruckman, but he did good. But when he come up against the bigger guys, the big tall ruckman, he got smashed. So,
Yeah.
and they've got a few ruckmen on the list, but they're all young, so
Right, right.
who knows where they're going to go with that.
And they're gonna need that experience, and it's
That's it.
and
There's quite a few. There, Harry Barnett, he's only played 2 games of AFL. He's young, but they're trying him in defence with Brass leaving. You got Colin Livingston. He's a young guy. He's a rookie. So he might be actually, people are looking at the Indigenous All Stars game in a couple of weeks. He might be the ruckman in that team. So get a good look at him there.
Okay.
So there's a couple of options they've got that they can look at. So we'll see what happens. Harry Edwards even go on the ruck, so he's tall enough. So it's going to be interesting.
So what's the thing that you're gonna be looking at, like I said, to tick the boxes where you're gonna be able to kind of sit back and go, yeah, this is exactly what needs to be happening. This is good. This is gonna get us to the next step on the ladder and move us up, and we're gonna pass this club and we're gonna pass this club because this is happening for us.
I think just getting games into these young guys, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's just going to be interesting. Like, we don't know what style it is. I've been down to training twice and had a look, and they seem to be moving the ball a lot faster, which they never used to. They were a pretty slow team when you thought about it. But when they did
Hmm.
turn it on, when the Eagles turned it on, they looked good when they moved the ball fast. So, and if McQualter's bringing a bit of that Richmond game that he had, if they can move the ball fast and they can do it successfully and, not turning the ball over, it's going to be exciting. And that's what I'll be measuring it on, how they're playing and just the culture of some games you looked at them and you looked like they'd given up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I know players don't go out to give up, but let's look like, what am I out here for? I just don't want to see that. I want to see them having a red hot dip every game. And, I'm expecting a couple of big losses. Look at Sydney, they were in the grand final, lost grand final, but they lost by 112 points during the year as well. So big teams lose by big margins as well. So,
Yes,
but
they
it
do. Yeah.
gets amplified when you're in a team that's not winning much. So, and
And
the Eagles, they haven't won much.
and you look at your first 5 games this year, and you look at it, you got to kind of be honest in when you say to yourself, boy, the schedule makers did not do us a whole hell of a lot of
Oh,
favors with this one. I mean,
they never do.
yeah, I mean, starting out, is this the year that Gold Coast finally plays finals? I don't know. Um, Again, I think the league certainly hopes that it is because they've invested so much money in that club. I don't know if does Damian
Well,
Hardwick
let's
blow
say
a gasket if he doesn't?
from an outsider looking in, if Gold Coast can't get in the finals, I'd be asking a lot of questions.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But that's their club. They've got their challenges
right,
like every
right.
other club.
Yeah,
They've been talking the talk a lot. They've got to start walking the walk. But when I come back, you just said the first 5 rounds with the Eagles. Yeah, the Eagles got Gold Coast first up. That's been a couple of years in the running now that they've had it. I think
okay.
it's one each. So it's at Optus Stadium. So I'm expecting Eagles to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the reason I'm putting that down as a tick because it's new coach, new players, new belief.
Right, right.
But I know they're going to have a red hot go because it's going to be the first game at home. Their second game, they're
You got
against
Brisbane,
Brisbane
Fremantle,
Lions.
GWS, and Carlton.
You know,
It's like,
Brisbane
holy,
Lions at the Gabba again. Like
yeah,
Brisbane played the first game against Eagles at Optus Stadium, the first game in WA in like 10 years last year. Um, and now we're back at the Gabba. I guess we're playing them twice,
yeah,
if
yeah.
not, but that's a Gabba. So
No, you don't have you
that's a
don't have
loss.
Brisbane. You don't have Brisbane twice this year.
So we're playing them away again, so that's a loss.
Yeah,
Um, Then West Coast versus Freo. Well, no one picked West Coast last year to win the first derby, and they won. You know what
yep.
I mean? So if they've got a fit squad, when you look at the Eagles' best 22 on paper or best 23 on paper, I think they can challenge any team.
Mm-hmm.
And on their day, it looks good. But as I said, footy's not played on papers, you know. So that's a half-half. Yeah,
Right.
they haven't done us any favors. The first few GWS
GWS and
Giants.
Carlton.
You know, yeah, it's weird.
It's like,
But
you
at
know,
least Carlton's in Adelaide.
if you get, yeah, if you get, is it is it successful if you come out of that with, let's just, again, on paper, if you come out of that with 2 wins, is that a successful start to the year for those first 5 rounds?
Well, if I'm doing a tip and I've got that 2-3 at the moment, so 2 wins,
Yeah,
3 losses.
yeah,
Anything above that's a bonus. And if it's 1-4, it's not going to be unexpected because it is
right,
a
right.
hard
Yeah.
draw because then they get a few games at home and all that stuff. But yeah, for a team, this is where I don't understand the fixturing and I've never have. Each team plays each other once. So there's 17 games. Then you have
Mm-hmm.
your rival team, and then you play. If you're in the bottom six, you play three of those teams, or you just play against. You know what I mean?
Right,
I
right.
can't see. To me, that they sit there. Oh, you get this, but we're Eagles are playing Freo twice. So that's a given. But I can't remember who they're. I think they're
They've
playing
got
Collingwood
they've
twice.
got they've got Carlton, GWS, Melbourne, Adelaide, and Richmond twice.
So that's not too bad this year. So that's not bad when you look at it on a whole.
Yeah.
But if you were playing like Geelong and you were playing a couple of Sydney and all that twice, then you'd be asking questions. And there's teams that are doing that finished
Mm-hmm.
down towards the bottom that are doing that. So I just think when they come to the fixture, and it's a hard job to do, but there is ways around it. So, and that has been floated where you play each team once, and if you play them home, the next year you play them away.
Right, right. Did
You
you
know
hear
what I
that,
mean?
Collingwood? Did you hear that, Collingwood supporters? You're actually allowed to go to Geelong, regardless the size of the goddamn stadium. You're allowed to actually play a game there. Get off your high horse and go play a game at Cardinia Park. There, I said it.
Well, it was funny because I think the Essendon president come out saying they didn't want to play. I think Essendon are playing Geelong down there.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, we don't want to go to Geelong. Well, mate, it's a
Oh
national
shit.
competition. You go
Oh
there.
shit.
Sorry. And when Hobart come in, or Tasmania, you're going to Tasmania. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we talked about the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I told you about that one particular fan. let's say the Eagles are in the playoffs right now, and I believe this weekend they are playing. Okay, they're playing the Rams this weekend in Philadelphia. But if the NFL if the NFL did things like they tend to do for Collingwood and for Essendon and that sort of thing, and they get, they get to play. Yeah, and again, I know that they share the MCG as a home stadium with a number of other clubs, but they get to still play in their home on their home deck a lot. But if the NFL came to Philadelphia and said, and this is going to be in really bad taste in light of what's going on right now, but I've already committed to it, so I'm going to say it. Um, if they told Philadelphia that, you know what, the Rams Stadium seats 5,000 more people than yours does, so you're going to play your home game at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Now, this is where the bad part comes in. The Eagles fans would go to Los Angeles and burn the stadium down. Like I said, it's really bad with regards to what's going on in Los Angeles right now. But that was just, there's the NFL would never do something like that. It's just that's still the one thing, having been following the game since 2016 now, that I understand that it happens, but it's one of those things that just it makes my head just kind of just when I realize that, wait a minute, this club finished with a higher standing on the ladder, but they have to go play their home playoff game on the home
Yep.
ground with the other club, where that club's going to likely have 30 to 40% more fans than the actual home club at the game. Make it
Yeah,
make
it
sense to me.
sucks.
And I get the money aspect of it. Like I said, I understand it,
Yep.
but it just that's my American brain that just is like, that would never happen here. Yeah, it would
Yeah,
never happen here.
it's people shake their heads at that all the time. So, but that's what happens when you only got two grounds in Melbourne. And it's funny that you said that, because Bulldogs, they play their games at Marvel, home games,
Yeah,
because they're celebrating their 125th year or whatever it
yeah,
is this year.
yeah,
They're playing Collingwood at the MCG, where Collingwood are going to have that 50,000 extra fans. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I'm like,
yeah. Yep.
why would you do that? And it comes down to money. So,
Okay.
um,
So before we
breaks the
wrap
world go
up
around.
here, I do want to get your kind of where you think the club's going to finish on the ladder this year, and your bold prediction. And then I've got a quick handful of Eagles trivia questions before we wrap up. So,
My bold prediction is Eagles win the grand final. No, no, I'm not joking there. Um, I think Eagles, look, I'd be happy for them to finish. I look, you know, part of me would love to see them just shut everyone up and make a finals appearance, even if they
yeah.
lost. But I'd love to finish around just out like say 10 to 12.
Okay.
Just make that small progression. Just win 8, 9 games. I'll be happy with. Um, I don't want to see it go down. I don't want them to go below what they've been. So
Hmm.
anything below is, obviously a loss, and you start, or the media starts, did they make the right decision? Did they make it too late? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And does
Yeah,
that
look,
impact Arlie Reed's decision whether he stays beyond next year and all? Yeah. And
yeah,
yeah,
and that's it.
yeah.
And my bold prediction is Harley Reid signs on and makes every Victorian team cry. And he signs on for 10 years. That's my bold prediction. So I know it's not that big a bold, because it could happen, but that's what I want to see happen.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be crying if it went the other way. So that's all I'm
Okay.
saying, because I see the positives on players leaving and what it can do to clubs, like we mentioned at the start of the show. So, and yeah, I just want to see the young guys like who Eagles drafted, Bo Allen, get
Hmm.
he's been speaking up so big, and there's a lot of pressure on this kid, because he was up in the top 10, and then he drifted back, and Eagles got him. He's been playing under Frio's nose for 2 years at Peel. So everyone knows what he did. I've seen him play Waffle this year. He's a big body, he can play. So it's going to be interesting where he fits in. They've got a young guy called Jabe Shanahan who can, yeah, they picked him as key forward. Everyone's gone, oh, we picked another key forward. We got enough. But as I've already said, he's already training as a halfback. So Be interesting to see how you go because he's a tall fella.
Yeah.
I, I I do my predictions every year, like drafts,
Mm-hmm.
and I had with my drafts, and I had this guy Tom Gross in as one of our last picks, and I'm glad they got him because he slipped back to 46, and he was supposed to go in the top 20, so he's going to be prudent. And there's a young kid down at the club called Luca Grego. So a couple of years ago, he was picked a guy called Brady Hoff. He's played now 59 something games of AFL level.
Mm-hmm.
He was our diamond in the rough. I think this guy's going to become a bit of a cult hero down there. He's got a rugby background. His old man was an assistant at the Melbourne Storm rugby
Okay.
team, so
Okay.
he's hard hitter. He's well loved down at training. He's kind of got a new big tat on his arm, and he looks like, I don't know if you remember. I think there used to be a guy called Carl Langdon that played for the Eagles probably before you got into the Eagles, but
Okay. Yeah,
he's a
I've
big
heard the
radio
name, but
personality
I don't.
now.
Yeah.
Big personality now, and he's got that aura about him. And then there's Hamish Davis that they picked up with their last pick, and like I had this guy in my top 30, and Eagles picked
Wow.
him up at 65, and he's a local boy, so.
Mm-hmm.
They're things that I'm looking at this year. I'm looking at the young guys that they bought in the trades that they bought in. Matthew Owies, what happened to Carlton? This guy kicks 33 goals for a small forward. I think it was the
Yeah.
second most for the AFL last year. What happened there? How's he at the Eagles? Are the rumors true that he asked for a bit too much money, or is there a falling out with a coach? Eagles get him for basically nothing.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably going to be there to take over from Jamie Cripps because it's probably Jamie Cripps' last year, let's be honest.
Right. Right.
Um, but those two together, they can be pretty dangerous. Chuck and Liam Ryan as well. And yeah, we've already touched on the two Richmond boys, Liam Baker and
Yeah.
Jack Graham. So they're the things I'm looking at. They're the things going to make me happy. It's going to be interesting. After the last 3 years, 4 years, the only way is up for the Eagles. So just got
Right.
to
Right.
be positive, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And you know, I guess we can't sit there and blame it on the coach at the moment because he's in his first year. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and Andrew McQualty, he's got a good resume and he speaks very well, and he was very well spoken about by people that aren't connected to West Coast. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then I look at next year's draft hand. They've got two picks in the first round, two picks in the second round. They've got futures.
There
Can
you
they
go.
snare a Chad Warner? Can they Chad snatch Keziah Pickett, who's rumored to be coming back to Freo?
Right.
Um,
Right.
they got picks coming at them, so I think they're in a good stead going forward, and it's something that Eagles fans haven't been in that position for a long time. So only way is up.
There you go. Now we're gonna do a condensed trivia here because I know you got stuff going on today here. So
No,
I
do the whole trivia. Do the whole trivia.
oh well okay
Don't hold
we got
back.
about 6 or 7 questions that I came up with here. So
Yep, I'll
um
probably get them all wrong.
here's the first one. In their history, have the Eagles won more games at the GABA or at Cardinia Park?
They won more games at Gabba.
16 wins, 13 losses there, and 8 wins and 19 losses at Cardinia Park. And that was not because I was a cat supporter that I was asking that question.
Have they actually won 8 games at the Cardinia Park? Have they?
They've won 8 games there, yeah, in their history. Yep.
I don't think they've won there since 2006,
Yeah, they well, yeah,
and
because
that
they
was when
got
they
their
come from behind.
oh, I'm looking, I've got the '07, '09, and 11 premiership posters hanging up above me on the ceiling here. So yeah, yep. So this player led the club with 7.71 percenters last year.
Well, the 1%ers. I remember you got me on this last year. Hey,
I love this. I love this stat.
is he a defender or a forward,
Oh, let me go back and look at the question again
or
here.
is he not? Either.
Um, he is not even on the list. So that ought to help.
He's not on the list. So Tom
Yes.
Barras,
There you go.
and I think it was him last year as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was him actually. Yep.
Yep.
So, did the leading goal kicker for the club last year, Jake Waterman, who kicked 53 goals, did he kick more or less goals than the number 2 and 3 goal kickers combined?
Oh, that's going to glow. I'm going to say he just got, I think he has ahead just.
That's correct. He kicked 53 and Cripps had 27 and Jack Darling 22 for 49.
Yep.
So yeah, he outkicked them by 4. Yep. Yep. So I mean I go back and dig through those tables as well here. So these these two players hold the top 6 spots in the Eagles history for most disposals in a season. So these two players of all the seasons that the club has had, these two players hold the top 6 spots for total disposals in a season.
Are they current players or not?
Neither one of them are current. One of them is fairly current.
So the question again is name two of them.
Yeah, there's 2 players. These 2 players occupy, I think they each have 3, each 3 of the top 6 in terms of total disposals per season.
All right. Saying, oh, gee, that's pretty. Matt Prittis would be one of them, wouldn't he?
That's one of them. Yep. Yep.
Um, Matt Prittis, and Andrew Gaff.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. That's it. Yep. Okay. Now, the last one. There were 5 players in the club that played in all 23 games last year.
Oh
You
shit.
only need to name 3 of them.
There was five. There was that many, was there?
There were that many. I did check. There were 5, and now I did not check back into 2023 because I don't know if there were even I don't know if there was even one that played in every game that year. Because I mean, if I
I'm
remember correctly, I joked about Adam Simpson going to Hungry Jack's and going to the drive-through and finding the guy that's like, hey, you're 190 centimeters, giving me my
yeah, I
Whopper here.
remember that.
Can you play key forward?
Well, I'm actually surprised there's five, and um, oh Jesus Christ, I'm trying to think who got injured and who didn't get injured. Geez, that's probably one of the hardest questions I've ever had to answer. Is Tom Cole one?
Tom Cole is one. Yep.
Alrighty. Whew. I know Jack
We
Williams in play every one. Jamie Cripps must be another one, huh?
He is. That's 2. Yep.
Alrighty. I know Harley Reid didn't. Reuben Ginby.
That's 3. Yep. So you've answered the question, so you're in the bonus territory now if you want to.
All right, I'm gonna go for the kill. I know Tim Kelly isn't one. Or Liam Duggan. No, all right. I'll give up there because I think too many of them got injured. I wouldn't be able to guess the other ones. That was purely guessing, I reckon.
Brady Huff and Bailey Williams.
Well, I was gonna say I was gonna say those two, and then I thought Brady I've got injured, but
So you
oh
did
well,
you did well on those. I think you got every question right.
75% on the last one. Oh well, I got it
Well,
right.
no,
Yeah, I had to get three.
you only had to
Yeah,
get 3 out of
yeah,
5.
three. So
Yeah, you had to
well
get 3 on that one, so you got that one right. Yeah. So
that's a first.
yeah. So before we go, where can people find Eagle Nation and when are you going to, and I have not checked to see if you have any new episodes that are out as of yet. When does the new season start for Eagle Nation podcast?
Well, the new season will be towards the end of February, probably just before or just after the preseason. It'll probably be before the preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we haven't had any new ones because I was working out which sort of interface I was going to use. And to cut a long story short, I was waiting on this other thing that didn't happen. So, and then we did do a couple of shows, but I couldn't get them up on air. There was a lot of technical, and I'm not a tech head, so. And by the time I'd worked it out, it was not worth putting them up. So 'cause that's why we didn't do a preview on the draft or a review of it. But we'll touch base on that when we start. So probably end of Feb, we'll get into it because I went on holidays and the other
Mm-hmm.
two boys are on different holidays at the same time. So and it's on everywhere. It's on all your podcast
Okay.
platforms, SoundCloud, Apple, Spotify. They're all wherever you are, listen, I think you can find most podcasts these days. Yeah, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, which I'm sort of getting used to because I'm an old school side type of person. I'm trying to get into the TikTok thing,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to get somebody involved that's of the younger generation to try and run that one for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And
we've
you
got
are
a
you
couple of guests.
you are on Castbox also there. So
Oh yeah, I know I'm on Castbox.
yep.
There's heaps of them that we're on.
Yep. That's the
Um,
one. That's the app that I use.
But if you want to go to anywhere, we just got a LinkedIn page. So go to LinkedIn and type in Eagle Nation, and all the
Okay.
major ones that we try and direct you to are there. So that's where we go to. The link tree, I mean, not LinkedIn, link tree. Um, yeah, look, we got a couple of things in the pipeline with sponsors at the moment. So we're trying to work that out. So that's probably why it's going to take longer to get the fair show out there. We're just trying to get a few things sorted out there because there's a couple of players involved. So, um, but I don't want to speak too soon because nothing's signed off and all that. But I've had a few approaches that of people that want to come on this year. So, and it's
Outstanding.
going to happen.
Outstanding.
So,
Yeah. And that's the
so
thing. I'm
I'm looking
always
forward to it. So,
I'm always looking
and
for
when
it.
the
Yeah.
Eagles do play Geelong, when do Eagles play Geelong? I'm going to get you on, mate.
Let me see here. 2025.
Probably the last game of the year,
It
like last
is
year.
round 12, June the
Around 12.
1st. Yep.
What date?
Sunday, June the 1st at
All right.
5:20 p.m. local time, and that is at Optus.
All right. Well, that's a long weekend over here, so be interesting. We'll get you on before then. We'll do a preview.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's right towards
And,
the end
and
of
we'll,
my it's right towards the end of my school year too, because we're done. I think we're done the day before that. We're done in May this
okay.
year, which is nice. So that works out really, really well. And I need to activate my Watch AFL app for this year so I can go back and watch some older games that I didn't see every game last year of the whole fixture. I try to watch as many of them as I can. So when I get to school in the morning, I'll throw a game on. Of course, now I've been watching more cricket than anything recently. So it's just been yeah, it's been
Yeah.
funny.
Well,
My wife my wife still watches baseball, so she was watching a Major League playoff game here with the Yankees and the Cleveland baseball team, and I was in the family room watching Bangladesh and Nepal playing cricket. So,
set up. Yeah.
well,
Yeah. Well, this is the first year I've probably turned off sport for the whole
yeah,
holidays.
yeah,
I thought I'm just going to have refresh myself. I haven't really kept up. I kept a little bit of an eye out on what the Eagles are doing and all that. But
hmm,
besides with footy, I just I'm turning off, just going to enjoy the outside world, and that's what I've been doing. And
there you
but
go.
now footy's back, sort of, starting to get back into it, getting that itch again. So, and if the right time in the morning, I wake up and there's a gridiron game on. I've been watching that, so that's probably the
Yeah,
only sport I've actually watched. Um, and with the Super Bowl coming up, you know, I'm looking at it a bit more. So I watched the Rams game the other day in full. So
yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
they can get through and play playoff.
It's going to be cold there this weekend in Philadelphia, so it'll be cold. But we know that one butthead of a man will not be in the stands because he's been sent on his way. So,
It
yep.
just froze in, so I don't know if that
Yeah,
got
you
done.
you froze for just a second there. Yep.
All
But
right.
Wazza, I do want to thank you for taking time out of your Saturday morning. I truly appreciate this. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
The honor's all mine, mate. Coming on your show is brilliant. I love it. And, for a person that living in America, your knowledge on football is second to none. So it's pretty good. And I love the passion.
Well, I thank you for that. I I I am still trying to tout this game to as many people as I possibly can. We've got a lot of people here who have started to show an interest in it, and if just the American media could actually figure out how to tell people that these games are on instead of just putting them on the air, hoping people discover them, I think it would go a long way to help to grow the game here because we love wearing sports gear, garb, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
and I think they could do such a much better job marketing it here, and they could
They probably
sell.
need they probably need some more expat Australians over there trying to push it more in
Yeah,
that sort of area. So But yeah, look, when it does, it's going to explode anyway. But there's a couple of games I think coming up next year. I think there's an exhibition game in America, isn't there?
There was
Or is
supposed to
that?
be one back right when COVID happened. I remember 2020, I
Yeah,
think it was 2020, Essen and GWS were going to be playing, I think, a round one game here.
I think there's talks about it happening again. So
Okay.
and I think Giants are one of them.
Okay.
So, and that doesn't surprise me because they'll use that Giants name because it's the New York Giants and stuff like that. So,
And the San
um,
Francisco Giants. Yeah.
yeah, so
The baseball team. Yep.
I'll look into that further now when I get off and have a look. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting. I'd love to do that. I'd even think about making sure I'm going for a holiday over there when it happens. But
Yeah. Well, hopefully the fires are settled down because they would probably be going to Los Angeles to do that, I would imagine.
yeah, well, let's
Yep.
hope everyone's safe over there
Yeah,
because
I
it's
do.
not a
I
good
hope so
thing.
too. It's been very ugly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
well, we have enough fires over here,
yes, you do.
so
Yes, you do. Yeah.
but because we're not that close living, we don't
Hmm.
get the probably the damage that gets done like over there. But
Yeah.
when a fire rips over here, it's doing about the same space, but
Now,
there's not.
and I guess I have
Um,
to ask, are there ones since it's such a vast continent and so much of the population is concentrated on the coast, are there fires throughout the history of Australia that have occurred in basically unpopulated areas where people didn't even realize they were going on?
oh yeah, for sure, all the
Okay.
time, all the time. But you say like the coast in Victoria last year, the year before, massive one there. That was probably the biggest one in
Hmm.
Victoria. But they probably weren't prepared. Like we do burn offs in WA and stuff like that, where you got fire breaks everywhere that limit the damage around housing areas
Yeah, it's the
because
one
there's a
thing they
lot of
do not. They
rural
they don't do that in California.
and they don't do that. And that's
Yeah.
probably they've been told about that quite often. You need
Yes.
to do fire breaks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It does help. We had like I know the size of the one in LA at the moment. We had one not long ago that was exactly the same size, but we only had five houses lost in it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So that shows you how spread out it is over here. So, but yeah, fires anywhere is not good, and hopefully they learn from what's happened and prepare more for
Let's hope so.
future,
Yep.
especially
Let's
there
hope
because
so.
it's happening in LA every 4 years, isn't it? So,
Yeah, it is. Yep. Well, have a fantastic day, sir. It is, like I said, it's been a pleasure to talk with you, and
well, you
I
you
I
keep
wish them the
warm,
best.
Craig.
I
You
I'm
keep
actually
warm.
I've got a sweatshirt on, but I am wearing shorts right now. So,
You
um,
keep warm, and I'm going to keep cool.
there you go.
And
There you go.
we'll talk soon. And again, it's a pleasure coming on the show, mate. I love it.
I'll I'll package up some snow for you and send it to you.
Thanks for
Okay. I'll see
thanks
you,
a lot,
Waz.
mate.
You
See
bet.
you, bud.
Cheers. All right, Wazza. Hey, thanks so very much for coming on to chat about the Eagles. I think it's going to be a very interesting year. I think this is going to be a club that's going to go through some growing pains, but I definitely think their needle is pointed in the right direction, and it's going to continue going in that direction. So, Eagles fans, don't lose faith because I think that the clouds are lifting, and while it may not be finals time yet, you're getting closer. Okay, so ladies and gents, remember you can find everything about my podcast over at the website at yankonthefooty.com. Get on the mailing list, subscribe over there, leave a review if you enjoy the show. Head over to Apple Podcast. You can also do that at my website and link one directly back to Apple Podcasts as well. And it's a really great way to help out the show if you want to do that, because if you like the show, that allows me to demonstrate to listeners in Australia that there are people there that enjoy the content that I'm putting out. Also, if you got an idea for a guest for the podcast, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd really love to hear from you on that. You can leave me a note over on my website or at any of my socials at Yank_on X, yankonthefooty at gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Just search out my name, Craig Wessels. And ladies and gents, look out for one another. If you need to talk to somebody, please reach out. Those numbers are in the show notes of every single episode of my podcast. I've been honestly struggling a little bit myself, and we got some what could possibly be bad news today. As I've mentioned in a previous episode, my wife is currently undergoing chemo and radiation for cancer. They believe it was caught very early, and the prognosis is excellent. But we also found out today that it's very likely that our younger dog, who's 10 years old, who is my wife, I walk him every day, but the two of them are inseparable. He is her security blanket, if you will. He's been having some digestive issues, to put it that way, and our veterinarian believes that he may actually be dealing with prostate cancer, which I did not know was a thing in dogs. And we're going to be getting an ultrasound done this week to find out if that's exactly what's going on or not. But keep your fingers crossed. If you're somebody who might want to say a prayer for my wife, I would greatly appreciate that. And I don't know if you could pray for a dog, but he's a half a great dog, and I hope he's going to be okay and around for a long, long time. He's 10 years old. We've got a 17-year-old Wheaton Terrier as well. So, folks, enough maudlin material there. Thanks for checking out the podcast. Check up on those friends. Give them a call. Make sure they're okay. I do hope you'll share the podcast. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, may your dribble kick never hit the post. And until next time, this is Craig Wessels. This is episode 362 of the podcast. I'll talk to you soon. We'll be back with our next preview very, very soon. Cheers and goodbye.